Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Say hi in the chat if you're here. Don't forget, if you're on Facebook, for us to see who you are, you need to tell StreamYard that they can give us your name. Otherwise, it just says Facebook user. Ooh, what's the weather like in Ohio? We have 9 people. That's fast.
It has cooled off in Ohio.
It is humid. We're getting the tail end of what's the hurricane right now? Ida.
Yeah, Ida. Yeah, we got the rain yesterday, and then we're getting the wind and the breeze today, which is kind of nice.
It's overcast and less than 70 degrees here, though, which is nice. Well, Kevin thinks it's nice. Our leaves are changing, and I'm like, oh man, it's September today, officially not summer anymore.
I know, but that's okay. Well, it'll be all right.
Yeah,
it's not winter. It's not winter.
It's not winter yet.
It's not winter.
And it did occur to me this morning, though, when I went outside, I was like, you know why? Reason why I have like this thing about the fall is because in Nevada, August and September are the hottest months. It's not really fall until November. And here in November, it's like winter.
Right.
Like forget fall. Fall starts here in August, really. And it's barely getting.
I like to call it Indian summer. Then we just get to stay in summer. It's a little bit cooler, but it's still considered summer.
Yeah.
So we get to stay in summer.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, yep.
And on that note, do we have people with us?
Hello, everybody. Say hi in the chat. There's Taryn. Hi, Taryn.
Yeah, say hi, you guys, because I can't see.
She's going to go get her lunch and be right back. So that's good. I'm going to share a link in the chat. Hi, see, Facebook user, we don't know who you are. You have to let us know who you are. So you can tell StreamYard that it's okay to use your name, and then we'll know who you are. If you're on YouTube, we can see who you are. If you're on Facebook. And then she says, thank you to Meg for inviting her. Janita, I'm going to share the link right now to, and I have no idea where it's going to show up, YouTube or, I think it will show up on YouTube. So I'm going to share the link to the archetype quiz link. And then, that is an ugly link, but
Chelsea's here. She's in Florida. She said Florida's trying to cook us alive.
Oh, hi, Chelsea.
They're crispy by the time they make it to the bus stop.
Oh.
All right. So I see the link.
I see Jen. I see my JD Brown. I don't know who that is, but hello.
Jen wants to know if there's a writer archetype for screaming psychotic, because she really feels like she identifies with that today.
We will talk about that. I would say there are definitely archetypes that tend to be more towards screaming psychotic than others. And I'm going to go out on a limb right now, knowing nothing else about you except that you said that, and say that you are likely either a teacher or a spiller. An artist, to me, generally is pretty like mellow about their work, or about, they're like really intent on just one project until it's done. And even if it takes 10 years, like the guy that wrote, I always remember the guy that wrote, I can't remember his name, of course, but the guy who wrote the geisha book, the life of a geisha or whatever. Oh man, now I gotta go look it up. Geisha book.
Facebook user said, to be honest, I'm not familiar with how to change my settings so that you can see who I am on Facebook. There should be
say it right on there.
Yeah, there should be something that says give StreamYard permission.
Arthur Goldman, right? Anyway, it's Memoirs of a Geisha is the book I was talking about. It took him 10 years to write that book. And he's an artist for sure. I don't need to know anything else about him. Only an artist would spend 10
Memoirs of a Geisha. Yeah, Marnie says. Taryn's here, and Terry Demons is here.
Terry Demons is here. You know what I love about Terry? Every time she shows up on one of my YouTube, she's like, I'm here. I'm here. And it's so much fun. Okay, so we have 12 people here. If you guys, if you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up on YouTube or like us on Facebook so that Facebook/YouTube knows to share. That would be super awesome. You can just tell us who you are, Facebook user, and that would be useful. And maybe, or just so that we can not just call you Facebook user.
Sherry Connor, she said
on Facebook, like up at the top of the chat.
I think it's Sherry Connor. She said she left Facebook and came to YouTube.
Okay. Hi, Sherry.
Good to have you, Sherry.
Sherry's in our morning crew. She's there every morning.
Awesome.
Okay. Archetype. So the Ninja Writer's archetype, or like a while, of course, I looked up the Geisha book on my same thing that I had. We're going to go over, I'm going to talk to you guys, or Meg and I are going to talk to you about the archetypes a little bit, and then we're going to go over the test together. Like everyone can just take it, and then you guys can put in the chat what you think. But like right around the time the pandemic started, I had this this idea that I think everybody falls into one of these 5 types of writers, and if you can know what type of writer, what your archetype is, then you can work with your strengths and your weaknesses, right? You can work with your problem points, and you can work with the things that, because every single person, I promise you, even you, if you're listening to this, everyone has things they're really, really good at naturally, and things that they struggle with naturally. And we can learn to adapt and use our strengths to help us overcome our weaknesses. And it helps if we know where we're coming from to do that.
Right.
So the 5 archetypes that I identified are a teacher writer, a spiller writer, which is what I call like a confessional memoir type writer, a artist writer, a skipper, which is what we call someone whose happy place is having an assignment and a job. This would be someone who, you know, would love to just work at a magazine or a newspaper or have a job, you know, like they like having clients and they like being freelancers, and that's their happy place. Ghostwriters or whatever, and where they have an assignment and they don't, you know, that's their, and they know for sure they're going to get a paycheck, and that's their happy space. I will say most writers have the ability to do skipping type of writing, like where they can skip from the reason they're skippers is because a skipper can skip from topic to topic to topic super easy. We all have the ability to make a living as a writer if we can write, right? So, but there's some people where that's like their thing. And then there are hesitators, and hesitators are a little different because because no one is ever just a hesitator. When you finally start, it's like having your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. And when you take your foot off the brake, you're going to move forward and you're going to go into one of these other archetypes. However, being a hesitator doesn't just mean that you're not doing it. It's an actual, like a personality type or an archetype for being a writer that you're always going to have going on with you. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But you're always going to be like a hesitator teacher or hesitator spiller or whatever, because there's so you need to know both of your archetypes if you identify as a hesitator. So Meg and I happen to both be teacher writers. And what I have found after 18 months of like just working with thousands of writers on this idea of archetypes is that most of us have a main archetype, and then it's kind of like Enneagram where like you have a wing. So like one or the other are, you know, some other archetype is going to be like your wing, your edge. We have 20 people watching. How exciting. Anyway, you're going to have an edge of something else, you know, or I have occasionally there's somebody who's like, well, I'm a little bit of all of them. Generally they're hesitators, but and they just haven't figured it out yet. But and sometimes it can be really, really hard to see yourself, like in yourself, what your archetype is. But we're going to try to help. We're going to see how that works on Facebook Live where we're not actually talking to you, but we're going to try. Yeah, Meg and I are both pretty good at just really only talking to someone for a few minutes and being able to kind of understand what there are. It's once you understand how it works, it's actually not that difficult. But Meg and I are both teachers first, and like really pretty solidly teacher writers. And I have a little bit of an edge of a spiller. Sometimes like it doesn't really happen if I don't write about it, and I can be a little bit of an oversharer, but not as much as say a straight up spiller writer. Like you will never find me writing about sex or like, I don't know, I'm really good. I'm really okay. Like you're never going to find me writing about my kids' lives or things that, I don't push that. I don't push the envelope as much as a spiller might on the TMI front, but I do. Like when I have something that's going on, my first instinct is often to write about it. And Meg's got a edge of skipper, so she's really good at finding income streams and like who's hired. I don't know. She has a long history with being a freelance writer as well. But I can be a freelance writer. I have been a freelance writer, and I never like it very much. I don't like working for other people. I don't like having deadlines. I've been a journalist. I have worked, where it was my job to be a writer, and I'm always happiest when I don't have to do that. Okay, so let's talk about each of the archetypes really quick, you think?
Yeah, Taryn said, have you ever come across a writer who really did not fit into any of these archetypes?
Not so far.
Yeah.
Have you? Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
I've had
people tell me
who don't think they do, and
they don't think
what
they
I
do.
have noticed is almost always, they're almost always a hesitator or an artist.
Right.
Artists sometimes are. Well, let's talk about each one, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But artist writers sometimes have a really hard time with the idea of being typed.
Right.
They, there's a desire with artist writers of being unique in a way that makes this whole process maybe a little uncomfortable or not something. And so it's possible that it's not helpful to you to have, and by saying that you fall into one of these 5 categories does not mean that that you're just like everyone else who's one of these categories. They're very broad categories. Otherwise, there's no way I would be like if you look at a more complicated system like Enneagram, like I could never just talk to someone for 2 minutes and tell them, oh, you're definitely a 4, or you're, I'm a 6, but you're a, I couldn't do that because the system is way too complicated. And this system is not that complicated because it's very broad. But it's also pretty precise. It's like broad, but also once you recognize your archetype, it's like, oh my God, yes, that is
and
me.
People who are test takers, like if you know how to take a test, sometimes you can manipulate the answers so that you come out even across the board. And if you do that, if you come out even across the board, if you write for a little while and participate, and then you go back around and you honestly take the test, you'll see that one's going to come out above the other.
Yeah. Also, it's hard to take a test, and this is a 12-question test. I mean, but also when you're taking a test like this, you have to be honest with yourself and not pick the thing that you wish that you were. That you have to be honest about where you actually are, and that can be hard. It can be hard.
Tender Wilderness says, I took the test and I have mostly D's with A's as second place. Sounds like I'm a substitute teacher.
I think D is definitely a teacher writer, and A is a hesitator. So you're like a teacher with a little bit of hesitation going on, but it's really good that you could figure out your teacherness, because sometimes a hesitator really has a hard time even knowing what their secondary or what their main, what they're going to go after they start.
Taryn says she's so impressed that you were able to identify all of the archetypes. If I tried to do something like this, I'd be worried I missed something. Shaunta meets with a lot of writers one-on-one.
I have a good, humongous base of,
she
this
does.
would have been much harder otherwise, but I spent years teaching and working with thousands of writers, and then I was able to do it. So, not off the top of my head.
Barbara would like the 4 types.
What the archetypes are again. What's that?
Yeah. What are the 4 types again, if we could say them again?
There's 5, and it's teacher, spiller, artist, hesitator, or skipper, hesitator.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about each one. Teacher writers have a tendency to be very outward focused. So that means that when I'm a teacher, Meg's a teacher, when we write almost almost entirely for our audience, I would
Mm-hmm.
say I pretty much never write anything that is just for me. Like I don't keep a diary or a
Yep.
journal.
I don't either. I
I
used
don't
to,
yeah, I
but
don't
I was never real consistent about doing it.
I'm not consistent with it, and it makes me nuts because I feel like I should be able to do this because I'm a writer,
Mm-hmm.
for God's sake. I write all day long, but I have trouble writing if I don't have someone I'm writing for.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm a novelist, a traditionally published novelist, and I can see it in my fiction as well. Just I write to teach, and that's just who I, the kind of writing that's the easy, it comes the easiest to me. And to be honest, it makes it easier to do some kinds of writing, right? Because blogging comes pretty easy to me because I get teachers are idea people. If you are someone who has ideas coming at you from all angles all the time, and every time anybody else tells you about an idea, you get just as excited about their ideas about as you do about your own, you're almost certainly a teacher of some kind, either a straight up teacher like me and Meg, or at least that's your wing. Let's just call it a wing because everybody knows that word, but like your edge. And so we're idea people, and all I want to do is share my idea. So my weakness comes in that I have to remind myself that I actually have to like put myself into my stories. I have to be a storyteller. And it's not easy to admit that being I identify as a storyteller. So it's really hard sometimes for me to admit that storytelling is not intuitive to me. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
good writer, and that's not difficult, I don't think. But I have to remember that it's not enough for me to just say, I figured this cool thing out. Don't you want to know? Here's all the info. And then it's really easy for my writing to come across as dry if I'm not careful, because
Right.
the
Mine
idea
too.
is the thing for me. And I have to remember that to make it the thing for them, I have to tell them a story. So that's a weakness that teacher writers often have, is their writing can be too dry, and it can be
Just
difficult
the
for them to
facts, ma'am.
remember to invite their reader in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the next one that we'll talk about is spiller writers, which is the word that I just picked. I don't know why. I wanted one word for each one, and I picked spiller for confessional writers, or writers who generally are very inward focused. So a confessional writer is the opposite of a teacher writer in the inward outward thing. So where I only write mostly for my readers, a spiller mostly writes for themselves, and sometimes can take a long time for them to start sharing their work. And when they do, it's still for themselves, but it's their readers tend to be a little bit on, like, can maybe feel a little voyeuristic, like they're getting a window into someone's actual brain or their actual life. um, and they are they're big, like if teachers big thing that they're really good at is ideas and getting those ideas across. Spillers, their big thing that they're really, really good at is storytelling. They are natural storytellers. Um, they just are. And whenever I meet someone, or I'm on like a call and there's someone and they just tell me a story about what's going on in their life today or whatever, and I'm like leaning in and I'm really I'm really into it, I'm like, oh, this is a spiller person. They have no trouble sharing their life, right? And they're where they get their weakness is that they have to do what comes easy to teachers, which is to invite the audience in. So where teachers have trouble remembering to tell a story in the beginning, spillers sometimes have trouble inviting the reader in at the end or giving them something to take away. Their writing is also often very cathartic, so it's often has some sort of something to do with healing in some way. um that's a spiller writer. um and I like to think about it like, how do you relate to your audience? And teachers, as a teacher writer, is someone like, if they were a rock star, they would be like crowd surfing and like down and like walking, getting off the stage and like going into the audience, you know what I mean? Like be like right in there. And a spiller would be up on the stage like in a stadium, and they want to know the audience is there, and they feed off the energy of the audience, but they are a little removed from them. They're not as like, come be my
they don't want to go
friend.
down into the crowd and interact.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be as much of like, be my best friend, you know. Like I love knowing all of the ninja riders. Like I get really excited when I'm on a call and I like know what's going on with everyone, and that makes me really happy because I'm a teacher. So connection with my readers is super important to me. And for a spiller writer, it's important because they need the energy of the readers, but it's not as important that they
don't need
are
the
like
interaction
face to face with them. Yeah. So like imagine on a stage where there's like lights and stuff. So like they know that everybody's there, but they're not like in your face with them. And then we have artist writers, and if teachers write for their readers and spillers write for themselves, artists write for their muse. I wanted to say spillers generally, they're not as, they generally have one central idea. They most of the time do not have a hard time choosing like what they're going to write about, because it's almost always very personal, right? So very personal to them, and so they pick this thing, and then they just keep writing about that one thing. Artist writers tend to have one idea that they are fully in love with, and they stick with that one idea until it's done. Of all of the types of writers, artists have the least trouble finishing a project, even though it might take them a really long time to get there, because artists are perfectionists.
They're in it for the long haul.
They're in it for the long haul. They are, of the three, I would call these three, teacher, spiller, artists, the three main archetypes. And teachers are the most prolific, and then spillers, and then way down are artists, who tend to sometimes be by far the least prolific. And they have a really hard time writing something that they are not feeling. Like they have to feel it to be writing it. In ninja riders, we don't actually have anybody I would say is a spiller, but not in all of ninja riders on our team, I meant. But Adrian and Junita are both artist writers, and an artist writer is like, they're not going to be a rock star at all. They're going to be like a folk singer or somebody who's like, they would be happy to play to three people, as long as those three people are fully engaged and really get what it is that they're doing. I think of them actually not even as rock stars, but as like where their work is like in a gallery, and they're totally happy with like one person at a time coming in and spending all day just immersed in their work. And even if it's far fewer people, than say a teacher might be happy with, because a teacher is going to judge their success on the size of their audience, right? Like this is one of those things. Remember I said it's not always easy to admit this stuff, but it's true. Like I actually don't even care. Obviously I care about making money, because if I'm making money, then ninja riders can keep going. But I have, it's a problem as a business owner that once I have enough money, which is obviously relative to everyone, but once I have enough money, I stop caring about making more money, and I just start caring about the people that I'm already writing for. And so when I write a blog post and it doesn't have the number of views that I want or whatever, I never look at how much money they make unless I remember to go do it. But I always look at how many views they have, because that's my audience. And I'm like, oh my God, why don't they love me anymore?
She does that all the time. She gets on the chat. She's like, you guys, I wrote a blog post and only 50 people have looked at it. What's wrong?
Yeah. I'm like, I just did this yesterday. Can you go clap? I need to make sure that it's working.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. And that's because that's me being a teacher writer, right? Because I'm so outward focused that if nobody is reading my work, there's almost seems like no point to it. And so then I get like in an existential crisis space. And an artist writer is the opposite, right? Where they're going to judge their success on the reaction that the readers have versus on the number of readers. So they would be totally happy with a handful of patrons, right? Like really deeply involved readers. You are not nobody is the only one for any of this, Taryn.
Yeah, no,
and you are not the only one. If you are
you would be amazed.
If you are a teacher, when I'm talking about my own experience, it's probably going to sound pretty familiar to you. Skipper writers write for money. They write, I mean, their highest goal, like they judge their own success by whether or not someone is willing to hire them, whether they have clients, they're business minded, and they have a much easier time than really any of the other archetypes. Teachers have a tendency to be able to write on many topics, but usually they have to be pretty related to their audience. Skippers are more likely to be writing for their employers. So you might find a skipper who writes for 5 or 6 different websites, and they're all in different topics, and they can switch gears real easy. If you're a skipper, there's no spotlight on you. Many times your name's not even on the byline or anything. So you're judging your success almost entirely by your income and by your employer's response to your work. So it's important to you probably that who you're working for is happy with the work that you're doing, and that and you feel like you are getting paid. If somebody is, when I'm talking to someone and they're really worried about like giving work away for free, or I should be paid for this, or how much am I going to be paid? Like they're probably some kind of a skipper, like even if that's not their main thing. Most of the other archetypes are not thinking about money in the beginning, not never thinking about money. Like everyone would like to get paid, but the skipper writer has the hardest time doing work that they're not being paid for. And if you are someone who thinks to yourself, how can I say this? This is how I know that Meg is not a skipper. She's a teacher first, because a skipper sometimes has trouble or thinks they have to work their brain around coming up with ideas that someone doesn't assign to them. So they don't know how to judge whether an idea is a good one or not without like an editor or a publisher or a boss giving them an assignment. That can be a transition for them. And then hesitators are people who what they do best is learn. They're learners. That is their strong suit, is learning. But the problem is that they often can spend so much time attending classes and reading books and learning and researching and making sure everything is just perfect that they turn around and look and they haven't actually written anything at all. But they're so busy that it feels like writing is a full-time job for them.
And they have a lot of knowledge about writing,
and they're super smart.
Yeah,
yes,
super smart.
But they have this like anxiety about, what if I'm doing this wrong? What if I put this out there and like the whole world sees it and it's wrong? And when I find myself needing to tell someone like, it's okay, just take a breath, because it's much more likely that you're going to put it out there and nobody's going to see it anyway. It takes writing is a very slow process. Like building there are some people, they put one thing out there and it like explodes, but they're so far and few between that you probably don't need to worry about that too much. Like where a teacher is going to be worried all the time, like, what if I put this out there and nobody sees it? A hesitator is going to be like, what if I put it out there and everyone sees it and it's bad, or it's not exactly perfect? So hesitators artists are both perfectionists,
Mm-hmm.
and they both struggle to put something out in the world that they don't believe, like down in their soul, that it is perfect. And so, unfortunately, if you happen to be a hesitator artist or an artist hesitator, usually, so I don't think I know anybody actually that if they're a hesitator, it's not like their main, like once you move past being a hesitator, you're always going to have that edge. So either you're an artist who's moved past being a hesitator, or you're a hesitator artist. Your big struggle in life is going to be actually producing, right? Because those are the writers that I say to them sometimes, like, maybe having writing be your main source of income or your job is not the best idea, because it may not ever make you happy, right? You might be better off having a job that you can tolerate or that you actually really like, so that you can write on your own terms and spend all the time you want researching, or all of the time you want making everything perfect, and then it's your art only. And if it eventually goes somewhere, because hopefully you will still publish. You don't have to want to be a full-time writer in order to publish. But artist hesitator or hesitator artist is the writer that's the most likely to actually not care that much about writing being their full-time. Like, they're the least likely, like, and that's actually the progression. I think skipper writers are the most likely to want to be full-time writers, and then teachers, and then spillers, and then artists, and then hesitators, and then artist hesitator. Because a hesitator actually, remember, like, a hesitator teacher is going to really want to be a full-time writer, but they're not sure how to get started. So they might spend 50 years thinking about it really hard and researching it and joining the Facebook groups and the email lists and reading a lot and filling up notebooks, and never actually, boop. And they might actually have a 50-year career as a teacher because that's their natural place, and never actually write anything, or not finish anything, or not put it out there, because the hesitator thing has their foot on the brake. But artists, and then especially hesitator artists or artist hesitators, are the least likely to be motivated by wanting to quit their day job and in fact, sometimes I talk to people who are successful, but it's so difficult for them to, like, produce as fast as a publisher wants them to, or like, to do anything that they don't really want to do. And they're artists, and once they become successful, it starts to not be that much fun for them anymore. So for the most part, I'm here, and I'm all about helping you guys find income streams that have to do with your writing. But for some writers out there, like, I would rather support you in finding a job that will support your writing, if that makes sense. And not, like, make you feel like you're losing your mind. So
we have tons of questions, so I'm just going to start at the one that I know we didn't answer. Writer's Block says, is there a writer archetype whose best fit is for writing fiction? Does that mean others can't? Sorry, not sure now.
Nope, all of them. Skippers might be the least likely to be fiction writers, but even skippers can be
they can ghostwrite.
Someone walked in the room, totally derailed my thoughts. But even the skipper, could be like a ghostwriter for fiction, or be happy like, if they're going to write fiction, they're going to be happiest writing on a what do they call that? Deborah, are you here? Deborah knows. It's
on
like
spec.
Where you get contract. On
spec,
yeah, or on
contract
to write. Like, they give you, so even a skipper, every archetype could be a fiction writer. There's not one that's that's more likely. I'm a fiction writer, and I'm, like, solidly a teacher writer. And in fact, my whole life changed when I just decided, because I spent my entire adult life resisting being a teacher, because in my mind I thought, if I'm a teacher, I've given up on being a writer at all, or being a fiction writer in particular. And then in 2015 I was just like, I can't, I need to do something. And I just let myself lean into teaching this way, and it changed my whole life, but fast. Like, as soon as I leaned into that's why I know this works, because when I leaned into my strengths, I had to hold on. It was like a runaway train.
All right. Crystal says she's a spiller first, artist second. What does that mean?
It means that you probably are very introspective in your writing, that you generally probably like to write about your personal experiences, or your writing is very personal to you, and you also like tend to be a perfectionist probably, and only work on one project at a time, most likely. And you're up in your head a lot, I bet.
Audrey says, I'm a hesitator apparently, but the other answers seem to indicate teacher/artist.
Oh, is that Audrey Wells? Because
Audrey Poor.
Oh, I was gonna say, because Audrey Wells is the most artist writer I've ever met ever.
Yeah, no, not Audrey Wells.
Are we really questioning that? Can you ask me that question again? Because I got caught up in.
I'm a hesitator apparently, but the other answers seem to indicate teacher/artist.
Yeah, so I think if you figure out the hesitator part, you'll find that you're likely a teacher with an artist edge.
You got to get your foot off the brake.
The hesitator is like an overlay, and it's always going to be there. You're going to have to figure out how to work around it and how to make yourself. And we'll talk. We can't. I mean, I could do this all day. There are things that you can do that will help you, like tools that you can use that will help you.
Right.
For an artist, anyone with any kind of an artist or hesitator, a deadline is going to be a really good thing for you. Or knowing, like, you probably need to know more than, say, me or Meg do when you're done with something. Because you're a perfectionist, that means that nothing ever feels completely done, and there's always some tweak you could make or whatever. Me, when I'm done, I hit publish. Like on a blog post, I publish it, it's done, and I don't think about it again.
Everybody always asks me, how long should my blog post be? And I'm like, you write until it's done, and then you hit publish.
And then you publish it, and then you move on. And that's because Meg and I'm going to go out on a limb. Me, myself, I have almost no artists. And I'm going to guess Meg probably doesn't much either, because we just aren't perfectionists very much. Like, good enough is good enough for the most part. I have high standards for what good enough is, so I'm not like producing crap. But I also... like it, I don't have to externally have a sign on my wall that says, like, when you reach this point, you're done. Because I don't
edit for commas.
I'm done, and I never want to look at the thing again. Like, I want my next idea is already pushing at my attention. And artists do not have, where everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses, or
and one of the archetypes is not better or less than any of the other ones. They're all, equal. It's just that they have their own strengths and differences. Taryn says, I totally thought that having a hard time with the storytelling piece meant that I couldn't be a successful writer. And she's crying. She gave us the crying emoji, because I would imagine she's happy that she now knows.
Happy tears.
Yeah, happy tears.
That is me. In fact, Taryn, when I write fiction, my story, I'm so excited about the idea that I have to get it all the way out of me before I can even start on it. And so my first drafts of my novels are often half as long as they need to be, because I'm not as natural a storyteller as I would like to, as I might wish that I was. And so I have to go back in and like really focus on the details and the stuff that, like, it's not good enough that it's in my head. I actually have to, like,
when I write fiction, when I write fiction and people read it, they say, well, where is this taking place? What state are they in? What season is it? How old is this person? And I'm like, who cares?
My head is a magical land.
Yeah. It's like, just follow the dialogue. Follow the story.
You're not
Who cares
alone.
about the bushes?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know who's a spiller fiction writer is Stephen King. I bet you anything he's a spiller.
Wow. I bet you're right. I'll bet you're right.
Way too, like, he's so famous, but I feel like I know him personally because I know so much. I know who his children are. I know, like, all his wife. I know all of this stuff about him because he shares so much of his personal life. He can't help himself, but he is sometimes he'll spend pages on a single detail, and that's a spiller.
Right. This is interesting. Writer's Block said, this is brilliant. I'm a spiller with a teacher as second. That's a bit weird as their opposite. You're actually the exact opposite of Shaunta, because Shaunta is a teacher spiller.
Also no opposite. Imagine it like a circle. I mean, I guess there's an opposite on a circle, but there's no opposite. I mean, one's inward and one's outward, but all it really means is actually, if we're talking about a continuum, I think a teacher spiller or spiller teacher is the one that's going to have the least trouble with the things that get you quickly to success, like making money. So say blogging. Teacher spillers or spiller teachers are the most likely to be successful bloggers, because lots of ideas and also like a little bit of an ability to tell a story, you know, on somewhere on that continuum. But the two things you need to be able to tell a story and invite your readers in, you've got a little of both. And so a teacher spiller, I think having a little edge of spiller is why I'm pretty good at blogging. Because I agree. I have a less hard time remembering to tell a story than I would if I was, say, a teacher artist or a teacher skipper. And that's probably why Meg has to remind herself, oh, I should go write a blog post. And every time something happens in my life, I'm like, I better go write a blog post.
All right. Taryn says she's glad she's not the only one. Tender Wilderness says, Ninja Writers really helps me out when I find myself hesitating. I'm so glad. Yeah, because discipline and motivation are big. Mm-hmm. Peg Lewis is here. Hi, Peg. Hi, she says, I think all my ideas are good. I just don't know if other people will like them.
That sounds like me. Peg's I know Peg pretty well. I think Peg is for sure a teacher writer.
I would agree with that.
I think she's probably a teacher artist.
I was going to say she has some artist in her. Yep. I would agree with that.
Perfectionism going on. And, but she's definitely a teacher. So anytime someone tells me because not only am I like, I'm bombarded, I get ideas just like come flying at me, but I also love them all. They're like, I think I have fabulous ideas. I love my ideas. I sometimes just develop a story idea that who knows when I'm ever going to have the time to write it, just because it's my playtime. I love it. And I love my ideas. And that's because I'm a teacher, right? The ideas are the most important thing to a teacher writer. Peg, definitely.
Rick Massich is here. He said,
Peg, Meg also agrees with me. I think you've got an artist edge.
Yep. I think so.
Yep.
Sonia says she's a hesitator.
Who's that?
Sonia is a hesitator. She said, OMG, yes, I am a hesitator. Rick Massich is here. He said, sounds close to me, but I wasn't sure at what point, because we kind of, all these questions have been running Rick for a while.
Well too. And I'm gonna say Rick is definitely a teacher writer. I've only ever actually read his fiction, but he does such a good job of like I know all about turtles and like how in Georgia on the islands, the islands near Georgia, they like help turtles like get to the ocean. I don't know I know all of this stuff because of his fiction. So Rick, I'm just going to say you're a teacher writer, and I think you're pretty solidly a teacher, to the point that not sure if I even know what your edge is. If I'm not even sure what it would be.
If he took the quiz, maybe he could tell us.
Probably a spiller. But as I don't see perfectionism, like Rick has no problem learning and moving on, and he doesn't get caught up in like, don't change any of my stuff at all. So but you're definitely a teacher, Rick.
Audrey Poor says, looks at my TV tropes, deep dives. I'm not sure at what point that was referring to. Tender Wilderness says, yep, that's my hesitator tendency. What do you recommend for a hesitator teacher who cannot at present afford the guild?
The club, or just do all the free stuff. Do the guild for $10 and come and meet us and work with us for a month, and then back off until you can't afford it. But you can join the guild right now. It ends tomorrow, but you can join the guild right now for $10, and it will never hurt my feelings, because I'm a teacher. If
And
you
you'll have a
get
whole
as
month.
much as you can for $10, and it will never hurt my feelings if you have to leave. I'll miss you, but I will, I offer as much as I possibly can for free. If I could figure out a way to offer it all for free to everybody and still have enough money to pay everybody that I need to keep everything running, I would. But I would say the club is only $25 a month, and there's lots and lots of opportunities in the club, and we also do a lot of free stuff like this call right now. So,
and Taryn, I will just
guild for $10 for a month.
And Taryn, I will let you know that I'm a single mom of 4 kids. And when I first found Ninja Writers, I was kind of the same way. They were having a $5 for the club for the month. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this $5 for the month, but then I can't do any more than that. Like I can't pay $25 a month. I can't do $50 a month. Well, at that time we didn't have the guild, but I said, that's all I can do. I'm going to do $5. I'm going to and I even emailed Shaunta and said, I'm just going to do the $5. And she said, that's okay. Do the $5 and get as much as you can for the $5. She did. She said that to me. So, but I did it for the $5. And by the time the month was over, I knew there was no way I wasn't going to keep going. So I did the $25. And then I started making a little bit of money on Medium, but not very much. And then they launched the Academy in November that year. And I was like, Shaunta, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I can afford that money. Like, where am I going to get that money from? And she said, well, do it. And she said, get on Medium and start writing. And she said, I bet you in 4 months, you'll be making your money back. And I was not making the money on Medium like I thought, but I was making it in other ways by, doing tech classes and SEO classes and stuff and some private coaching. So, and then I ended up on the Ninja Writers team. So sometimes
you don't know. I think I truly do believe that there's not anybody that's on this call right now who's not capable of within a couple of months making at least $50 a month as a writer if you wanted to. Maybe not just maybe not on Medium, but like you can find a freelance job that'll pay you $50 a month or something, right? So I'm confident that if that's your goal, if you wanted to join Ninja Writers and you did it, you can always get the club for 2 weeks for free. You can get the guild right now for $10. Like, come to the classes and tell us, like, what Meg runs a whole freelancing class. So every week, and you can just go and tell her, like, I am determined to make $50 a month so I can stay. And she'll start giving you resources and telling you where to go. And, here's a job. I mean, it's our passion. So but also if you join and you're just like, I just cannot make this happen, join and get what you can for the month, and then stay in the stuff that you can do for free. And like, just like next Sunday, this coming Sunday, so in a couple days, we're gonna have a whole full writing day all day long. It's free. It'll be open to the public. So there's lots of stuff you can do for free.
And we have so much. I mean, we get so much done on our free writing days. Sometimes we do sprints. There's all kinds of stuff.
The reason why can I just say really quick, the reason why I know that Peg is an artist is because she wrote the sentence, what about verisimilitude? One type more than the other. And only an artist would use the word I don't even know how to say the word, much less what it means.
Tell us what it means, Peg.
Yeah, do you know what that word means? Verisimilitude.
I can't see it because I'm trying to stay on the chat so we don't miss people's questions.
It's in the chat. But she says verisimilitude. What about verisimilitude? Is that one type more than the other? And I don't know what the word. Now I have to go look it up.
Okay, you go look it up. Taryn says,
is there more questions while I look?
Let's see. No, that was Taryn's. We just did that one. Okay, Cindy Ball says she's definitely a hesitator. Terry Demons is an artist with hesitator tendencies. I like that, Terry. That's fun. Nan, no, she says she has hesitator tendencies.
I don't think so.
Do you think she's an artist? Maybe she's a closet artist.
No, I don't think she's a closet artist. I think she's an artist straight up. But
she just doesn't want to admit it.
I think she's a teacher artist.
Ah. What do you think, Terry?
But I
You
mean,
said she was an
Shannon
artist
is
with
prolific.
hesitator
She's
tendencies.
way too prolific to be a hesitator.
So
And
maybe she's
also,
an artist teacher.
artist teacher. That's probably similar to Junita.
Yeah, artist teacher. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Nan says she's much more confused than when she started about the archetypes. I thought I understood before your explanation here. Uh-oh. But I know who I am, why I create, and for who, and I'm driven and productive. My biggest issue is having enough time to get everything created and occasionally sleep.
Teacher.
I was going to say teacher.
That's a definition. I mean, that sounds like you were defining a teacher. Nan, what did you feel like does teacher not feel right to you? I'm not sure what you're feeling confused about. Megan's the biggest spiller in the universe.
Yeah, Nan, if you start working on something at 10 o'clock and all of a sudden you look up and it's 2 a.m, you're probably a teacher.
It's just she's as joyous about sharing the right thing with one person as with 10,000. And actually that can be true of a teacher as well. Like I love doing one-on-one or small group. I mean, I don't have to have multitudes.
Right.
But I would be unlikely to always only have a couple of, like when I'm writing, I'm very focused on outward, but you could be a teacher artist too, for sure. Nan is
Barbara says, do hesitators have a stockpile of pieces they are working on without submitting? Yes, Barbara.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
That is if the other definition sounded like the definition of a teacher, then that definition sounds like the definition of a hesitator.
Lots of pieces you're working on and none of them have been published yet. You're probably a hesitator.
And I will also say that teachers, because ideas are so important to us, it can be really like often the people who get the most confused are the teachers, because they're like, we want to do it all, right? The ideas are so important that what happens to me a lot of times is if I choose this one thing and I stick with it, then I have to give up all of these other ideas that are, and it's not only teaching like that. Like I go into restaurants and I always order the same dang thing because I know I'm going to order something else. And I'm going to be sorry that I didn't get my favorite thing. What if I didn't like it? What if, and that's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like I get paralyzed by all of the choices that could be there. And I end up either not doing anything or trying to do all of it and just getting like a smorgasbord, right? Like I'm a little bite of each thing because I can't settle on one thing because I want to do everything. I don't want to give up on the other stuff I can't do because I have to do this thing.
Maybe you could post the link to the quiz again, because I think we got some new people coming in. But Nan joined the guild yesterday. Yay. May not realistically have time. Nan
is also part of our morning crew. She is there every morning.
Nan, everything we do is recorded too, so you can log in and you can watch the replays at any time that works for you. So if you can't come live, you can log in and watch a replay. Marnie says she's an artist first, hesitator second. Lisa McCombs is a teacher writer. That doesn't surprise me, Lisa. No. My JD Brown had the same experience once, leaned into the process instead of fighting it. Everything became easier. Exactly.
Yes.
No. Facebook user, is a spiller teacher a thing? Sounds like my life in general. Yes, a spiller teacher is a thing. Yep.
It definitely is. And that would be someone who tends to write, be more comfortable writing stuff that's very personal and tends to be prolific, but also their writing, it's important to them, like their writing is a healing thing for them, and it can often be very cathartic for themselves and their readers, but they don't have as hard a time as other spillers might with reminding, like letting the reader in at the end, like the takeaway.
Yeah. Nan says she thought she was a teacher. She celebrates 50 years of teaching this month. Yeah, not all teachers are teacher writers, but most of them are
teachers, because, and this is why I could tell you as a mom of a special needs kid and someone who has worked in schools a long time, that there are teachers who they go through the schooling because they think they should be teachers, or they think when they're 18 they want to be a teacher, and then once they're graduated, like what else are they going to do, and then they don't enjoy it very much. But someone who enjoys being a teacher is almost likely like a teacher. And, you know, Nan, there's like people who they just are teachers. It doesn't matter what job they have or what they're doing for a living. They just are teachers. Nan, I'm just going to say I'm almost 100% certain that you are a teacher artist. Teacher first, artist second.
Well, the second part of her sentence says, but I am fueled by the thrill of reflecting truth, beauty, and depth. And that is totally an artist statement right there. So I would say teacher artist.
Yes. I would just say that you are a teacher artist for sure. I'm very certain of that.
Audrey said she went through her answers again and lost all but one of the hesitator answers. That's Audrey Poor, not Audrey Wells. Peg says, aha, that's me at last, an answer. So we got to the right place. Peg found something that fits.
Oh, there we got to the joy of one person as well as 10. That's because you've got that artist in you. So the what your reader is getting, like the emotional impact, is important to you, say more than it is important to me. I'm more interested in just sharing the ideas, and you're also have this artist part of you, so you're also really excited about sharing the experience or the feeling. I have it's one of those things. It's not easy to admit, but it's harder for me to be emotionally connected, or not emotionally connected to the people, but with the work, I have to make myself slow down and like read it again and make sure that I've put the emotion that I'm feeling actually into the piece, because I have to remind myself that it's not enough for me to feel it. I have to actually like share it. And that's harder for me.
Kathleen says she feels somewhat split between spiller and artist, but given that she still has her personal journals from the past 40 plus years, spiller just might be my primary archetype. I would agree.
I'm going to say probably.
I would agree. Taryn says she would love to write and make enough money to pay the monthly membership, which you make look so easy, but the getting started seems so daunting and I have no idea how.
You know, Taryn has been on the outskirts of Ninja Writers almost as long as there's been a Ninja Writers. And I'm just going to say, Taryn is almost certainly got some hesitator stuff happening. And so Taryn, the only way to get like the tool that's going to be the most important to you is giving yourself external, like not rules,
like motivation and discipline to get it.
You just are going to have to say this is how I'm going to take my foot off the brake, because you will always have a reason why getting started or not knowing how, or like, what if I can't make it work and you make it look easy, but I'm never going to be able to do that or whatever. It's not easy. I'll never tell you it's easy. That's what makes Ninja Writers different, because you're never going to find me saying, 30 easy steps or like 30 days and to be making $1 million or 1 million followers or whatever. It's hard work. This is work. It's really work. And, but it's work that we love doing, but it's still work. But if you're a hesitator, one of the things that I need to put my foot more on the brake because otherwise, like, I have to have external things that tell me like I have to follow through and stuff, because I'm like throwing my ideas all over the place, and like I'll half start something and I have to be like, have like rein in, and if you're a hesitator, you have to like let go a little, like be like, okay, like let's just see what happens. See what happens. That's all. Join for $10. You're only out the $10. At the very least, we can meet finally, and and we can talk about like. And
you have a whole month. We will figure it out. Yeah. We'll help you figure out what you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not out much. It's a low stakes.
Megan says, when is the date and time on the full-time writing day? It is the 5th.
But it's this coming Sunday, and it's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. It's the 7th, the 5th.
The 5th, yeah, the 5th.
Yeah, Samuel told me.
Megan says she's the biggest spiller in the universe. Yeah. And Terry says she's terrified of teaching.
No, but it's
Um,
not about being a classroom teacher. It's just that
sharing
you're an
your
artist,
knowledge.
though.
Yeah. It's
It's
about
just
sharing your
that,
knowledge.
no one who has the depth of ideas that you have, and then just just the sheer, like, the world building that you do, that's the artist in you. Same as Junita, where she's got this whole universe living up in her brain.
She has a sentient planet.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know if you've ever been in a call with Terry, but she's
I
got these
haven't.
whole worlds that she's been working on for decades, and they're deep and rich, and no one has that level of intricacy of their world
Mm-hmm.
building without being an artist, but also that number of ideas. It's like it's an artist first, teacher second to me is Junita, exactly. But also, now that I'm thinking about it, it's Terry too, because it's like where my ideas are like everywhere, and I'm just like sharing them with everyone, and I can sometimes come across as really bossy because I'm like, you should totally do this, and I know it would work, and just do this, just do what I tell you to do. And where artists, like, the artist edge on a teacher like reins their ideas in, so they get like really deep and narrow, so they get like um all of these ideas, but they're all in the same direction, so they end up building these intricate worlds, or these huge, like I bet you anything Tolkien was a teacher artist, or an artist teacher, probably. Like an
Probably.
artist first, teacher second, because nobody could
Mm-hmm.
develop a world like that without being an artist. But you also have to have the teacher, or like the level of ideas that are there is just, and the need, and the uh, desire to share it with so many people, just that's the teacher like edging in, but
Mm-hmm.
that kind of world building, like, that doesn't come from being a teacher. I can tell you, it's not, because it's not me. My ideas are too spread out,
No, I get
or too
bored.
like,
I get bored with having to do that much detail in a world, you
yeah,
know. I don't
yeah,
even want to write about the flowers in the bushes because I don't care. I'm trying to
yeah.
get to the character
But
who's on the
like,
sidewalk.
I feel like I have been to Junita's worlds,
Mm-hmm.
and I have also feel um I can't remember the name of her wood. What's your name of your wood? The Trixie Wood. That is Terry's world, is called the Trixie Wood, and
Mm.
I feel like I can smell it, and I can taste the air, and I just know, I know it. I can see it in my brain, and I do not visualize, you guys, but I can see her world, because you're such an artist, and that
Mm-hmm.
is an artist writer.
Yep. JD Brown says, how can an artist type get out of their comfort circle to grow their audience?
Okay, so an artist is going to just have to, again, I'm going to say that
Oh,
especially if
wait.
you're,
JD said just did the quiz. The results were overwhelmingly a spiller. So not an artist, but a spiller to grow their
but
audience.
an artist type can get out of their comfort zone to grow their audience. Almost anything, where as long as you know what your difficulty is, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
know, oh, I'm going to have to do this, right? So you're going to have to do it, but you may not be as happy building an in your face community as a teacher would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may be happier, um, you
With an
know,
email list,
and or not, yes, with an
like
email
a
list, but
newsletter.
where you're becoming part of other, like, you're kind of like becoming part of other sort of esoteric artistic communities, and then also sharing there, and also building your audience smaller, or more slowly. Like, I do not know a single artist writer who's artist first who's happy as blogging. I
Mm.
don't, who likes blogging whatsoever.
Yeah,
So, like,
Janita.
know that instead of being a blogger, you can just keep writing your book, and then be okay with the audience growing a little slower. Or do like what Terry's doing right now, which is releasing her book on Vela, right, a little bit at a time, and then just knowing I might have to do some things that are uncomfortable. Like, I might need to tell people I have an email list, and it might not be comfortable, and it's okay for me to be uncomfortable. like reminding yourself. I think maybe artists the most out of, and this is hard for me to remember because it's the least difficult for teachers. And so I have, obviously I'm human. So the stuff that's the least difficult for me, I have to remind myself that it's more difficult for other people. But artists of everybody, I think, have the hardest time remembering that being uncomfortable is not the end of the world. Like it's okay to be a little to be uncomfortable, even really uncomfortable for a few minutes. Junita has a quote from We Bought a Zoo that's one of my favorites too, but it's on her email signature. That's something about 10 seconds of intense fear or and doing something really scary for 10 seconds can change your whole life. And reminder for her.
Do you know Shark Tanko? It's got to be one of your
That's
kids.
My son.
Okay. Hi, Nick. Nick says that you could hire someone to do your blog for you if you're not a blogger. Yes. So yeah, that's totally true. Good suggestion. Nan says, teacher artist, also a mystic, keeping artist journals since the age of 5. I know what I've made is right for a community, especially choral music, paintings, or stories. When I cry as I finish making it. Yeah, that is totally an artist writer.
She's just a teacher artist because, Nan, I'm just gonna go with teacher artist teacher somewhere. I bet you're pretty close to half and half. Like some people are. I'm really teacher with a little bit of spiller. Some people are closer to like a lot of both.
All right, that's it for the chat. Okay, Terry says 10 seconds of courage.
Let's go over the quiz real quick. Shall we? We still have about 20 people here, so I think we can go over the quiz real quick. So the first question is, for whom do you write? A is, I'm not sure yet. Whoever pays me, myself, my readers, my muse. For me, it's definitely my readers. So I'm not going to, you guys can all go look at the quiz, but I'll say the reason why we look at who do we write for is because when you know who you're writing for, it makes writing so much more easy. Like, and also if you're like, I have to have, my muse has to be on board or I can't write. Well, there's no reason not to be okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, okay. That means I don't have to write the way Shaunta does, because Shaunta doesn't care about her muse and not even sure that it's a thing. And what she really cares about is her readers. That's her main thing. And I also don't have to write like Megan, who's like a great big spiller, because it's okay for me to not want to share like. You like open up your guts and share them all over the place. Like, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. There's plenty of room in the world for every kind of writer. So if you know that your happiest place is in like this cathartic healing kind of like spilly writing, then there's instead of trying to write this artistic novel, maybe you want to start a blog, or maybe you want to stop doing what's going against that and start leaning into the things that are in line with who you tend to write for. Right. And then the same thing with being prolific.
I'm going to jump in for 1 second because I just want to announce this. Taryn says that she will do somebody's blog for them if they pay for her guild membership. So if anybody doesn't want to be a blogger and you're looking for somebody to blog for you, get in touch with Taryn.
Yeah, so Taryn will probably write a blog post for you a month, and in exchange for $50 for a blog post is a great deal. Get in touch with Taryn, and she's a great writer too.
Good.
See?
All right.
See? Oh, magic happening right here.
Yep.
How prolific are you? Teachers tend to be the most prolific. But we struggle with finishing. Spillers are also very prolific, but only if they want to be. So spillers have a harder time writing something if they don't want to write it. If they're not feeling it, spillers are very emotional writers. If they're not feeling it, it's really hard for them to do it. And I am a teacher writer has got a much, and skippers for that matter, have a much easier time separating their emotions from their work, and it's like work, right? It's their job. And artists can really struggle with producing work if they, that 10 minutes a day thing, I've seen it do the most magic for artists, because artists are the writers who have the most tendency to think if they can't give everything to writing, then they aren't going to do it at all. And so
if they don't have 3 hours, they're not going to write.
Right. Or all
Yeah.
day, or,
Right.
And so the external reminder, like the streak or whatever, that just 10 minutes a day, it adds up, and they have to train themselves to do that. Because, and whenever I talk to someone about that 10-minute thing, and they say, I just talked to someone this today about this, and they're like, oh no, I'm one of those writers that if I can't write for a couple of hours, I just won't do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I mean, if it works, if you're successful, I have mottos. One of mine is, if it's working for you, it's working. Like, you don't have to listen to me. If having this idea that you can't write unless you have hours to write, well, okay, if you're waking up at 4 a.m. and giving yourself those hours to write, and it's making you happy, and you're as successful and happy with your writing as you want to be, go for it. But if you're telling yourself, I can only write if I have hours to write, and that means that months go by and you're not writing anything, or you've been working on the same project for years, because you might write on it for a little bit and then come back to it years later when you have time to spend on it. If you're not happy with it, you need to change something. And for artists, often what that is training themselves to be prolific in sips rather than gulps. Art, and again, teachers and skippers have the least difficulty with being prolific, and then spillers, and then artists. And artist hesitators, they have the worst time, unfortunately for them. But also, when they are writing, they're the happiest, because they are like in connection with everything. How do your ideas show up? So I think there's a lot of significance to how your ideas come to you. Teachers tend to be bombarded, and we also tend to have a difficulty separating our ideas from other people's ideas. And that doesn't mean that we are plagiarists. It means that we get so excited about someone else's idea that we just go all in on that, the same way as we do for our own, for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really easy. If I have a trouble with being productive, it's because I'm being productive for someone else too much, and I'm not protecting my own writing time. Spillers, again, generally have ideas that come to them out of their life. They are very, like, they come from inside of them, and rather than being like bombarded, they are the ideas are there, but they are start from the inside, or like they'll hear something
more like a well.
If they can connect it to something inside of themselves, then it becomes an idea. But it's tied very closely to their experiences, where artists, again, generally tend to have one idea that they follow through with diligence, and with, like, where it's like their life's work. So until they're done with it, and finally, and they can have a hard time knowing when they're done. How important is earning a living to you as a writer? It's important, definitely to skippers. Also to to generally, I talk to a lot of spillers and teachers who would really like to be full-time writers. Spillers have a harder time seeing where adjacent things might also, like, a teacher could be like, I could be a coach, and I could be a teacher, and I could write these classes, and it all feels like writing to them. And spillers generally have a harder time seeing like a shoulder or adjacent work that might like feed into their writing. And artists, most of the time, if they had to choose, like, between having readers that really understood their work or being paid, they would definitely choose being understood, or having people who take in their work really care about it versus getting paid. Artists are the writers that, for me, sometimes trying to be a working writer too early is very detrimental to them, because they end up, it's harder for them to want to do writing that is not their passion. They're writing, like, their project is their passion, and so if they're pulling from that same well to do, say, freelance writing just because they think they should or they can or whatever, lots of times an artist writer would be happier doing some other entirely unrelated kind of work, and then being able to put all of their creative energy into their passion work. Why do you write? Hesitators often are the people who say that they write because, and artists, because if they can't write, then like there's no reason to live or whatever. Like they get very like emotional about the reasons why they're writing. And hesitators feel that way, and how that translates to them is they spend a lot of energy building up to getting there. and artists put all of that energy into this one project. And spillers tend to write for healing. I don't know why, but spiller writers, for the most part, sometimes there's a spiller writer who's like a mommy blogger or something, who might only be sharing the happy things, but often later on those people, like, their lives implode, right? And then that's also public. But there's a healing aspect to almost every spiller writer, all their work. And teacher writers write to teach. They write to share their ideas, and artists write for their art or their muse. And then this question about which book do you wish you'd written is mostly just for you to see what kind, if you can think about the writing that you're drawn to, it might help you to figure out what your archetype is. Yeah, so you can see that question on there, though. But for a hesitator, I think they tend to just love whatever it is. They just wish they'd written all of the books that they love, or any of the books that they love, or they have a hard time narrowing it down. A skipper writer, what I wrote on here on the quiz is they'd love to ghostwrite a novel for their favorite celebrity, or just maybe they have a similar time as the hesitator in choosing one, but it's mostly because of what I said before, where sometimes a skipper has a hard time like unlocking their creativity, you know what I mean, without somebody telling them, oh, this is what you should, like, here's your job today, or here's your job this year or this week or whatever. Then I wrote, so the book Lolita is the most spiller book, work of fiction that I could think of. It's so emotional and so deeply, like, by the time you read that book, you feel like you're living in, and it's so uncomfortable to read. Holy crap. But it's gorgeous. Like, every single word of that book is gorgeous. I guarantee you now I'm not gonna be able to remember his Russian name. Anyway, Lolita's author is definitely an artist, just an artist spiller, or spiller artist. Like, there's no way that somebody wrote something. Lolita, of every book I've read thousands of books, every page of that book, every line is perfection. And it is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever read. And I could not put it down. I couldn't make myself stop. And then I ended up feeling like I'd spent a week like living in a pedophile's body. It was awful, but gorgeous and compelling. And I couldn't stop. And that is a spiller writer. And then I chose Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as an example of a teacher piece of fiction, but any kind of fiction where you come away feeling like you've learned something, or that it's more than like something you didn't know before you started, is like, when I'm writing, I often write about Nevada, and I have like this very distinct feeling like I want to share Nevada with my readers. That's because I'm a teacher, right? And then any national book award winner would be an artistic book. And often I read a thing once that national book award winners, like they win the highest award that an American book can win, and they often have like 2,000 sales or something. But it doesn't matter because I mean, it might matter to them, I don't know, but the fact that they won this high award is really also very important, because it's like an indication of the art. How much detail do you put in? Me and Meg both, some, but I'm more interested in clearly sharing my ideas than in the details. Spillers put in the most detail. Artists also put in uh, much, like all of the detail. This is an artist's happy place. Is the detail. Like, remember what I was saying about Terry and Junita? Yeah. What I was saying about Terry and Junita's inner worlds, like
Right.
that is that kind of level of detail. There's no way that somebody doing that is not an artist, writer. And for, again, all of these, like a hesitator is going to have a hard time answering these questions because they don't know yet, because they haven't taken their foot off the brake. They don't know where they're going to land. But they might be drawn to one of these other answers. And then, a skipper is going to have a much easier time than other people, like putting more detail in or less, depending on what's expected of them. But also, a skipper here is where a skipper might find that they have a natural tendency toward another kind of writing as well. So somebody who's a skipper, but also a fiction writer, might be like a skipper artist. And so they have to remind themselves to put in less detail if their boss or their publisher or whatever doesn't want it, but it's going to be easier for them to do that than someone who's not a skipper. Which of these is your biggest strength? Research definitely is a hesitator. They are researchers. Their research is like their strength and also their downfall, because they have a hard time turning it off and remembering when it's time to like just go. Switching gears between topics, being able to like time block or work a little bit on this project and a little bit on that one and get everything done. Being able to shift gears in their heads is a skipper's big strength. Storytelling is definitely the biggest strength for a spiller. Sharing ideas, being able to clearly share ideas concisely is a teacher's big strength. And then the craft of writing, like the artistic parts of writing, are the artist's big strength. But also, I'm going to say world building, just being able to develop these intricate, deep worlds is definitely an artist's strength. I would say Chip is also an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Just anyone
He's got
who's
some
got
teacher in him, though.
Artist teacher for sure.
Yeah.
But when you think of it that way, and Chip, and you can start to see, you're right. They're all write very different things, and they're not all the same. But you can see where they're cut from the same mold or the same cloth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And biggest weaknesses, so insecurity for sure for hesitators. Sometimes a skipper might find that their work can feel generic or boring to them, especially if they've spent a lot of time, say, writing for content mills or that sort of thing, and they teach, they learn how to just churn out work, and that can transfer over when they're trying to do more creative work for themselves. Audience building is a strength for spillers.
No, a weakness.
A weakness, I'm sorry, is a weakness for spillers. But it's not actually getting readers, because sometimes what they're working on is so controversial or so like compelling that that people find them and read them, what they struggle with is connecting to the audience. So maybe audience connection would be a better thing to say there. And then finishing is a really weakness for spiller or teachers. Teachers struggle with not with starts. Great with starting things, planning them, really good at that. Finishing them, that's hard for us. Perfectionism is an artist's downfall for sure. What is your favorite thing about being a writer? What's your favorite thing, Meg?
I think I'd have to say, wow, I don't know. I think I'd have to say probably, wow. I feel like a hesitator here. I know it's not E. Let's put it that way. I really, really enjoy that I can earn a living doing what I love.
That's interesting because I was going to say until I started Ninja Writers, I would have absolutely said the storytelling was the most important thing to me. And that would be my edge too. And I didn't have,
well, storytelling isn't on there, is it?
I started Ninja Writers because I was like, I wanted something that I didn't have, right? I was having a hard time connecting with other writers and I really wanted to. And then all of a sudden it took off. And when it took off, I thrived because that I was like, oh, this is what I was missing. People to talk to. And
yeah, because I like being in the different writing communities and stuff. Like I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and I love to go into like the Facebook groups and answer questions for people because a lot of times the questions they're asking are things that are just
tribe around your niche, right?
Yeah, but easy for me to
what
answer.
Your niche is or who your niche is, right? Then it's hard. Like that can be hard for teachers. Almost to the point of being a difficulty.
But like I do that stuff anyways, even if, like I don't get paid to go into Facebook groups and answer questions. I just do that because I like doing it. So I don't think that that's like I don't know. So I would have to say it's between B and
the writing community. That's the one I put down as the hesitator. And it's okay if you have like one answer that's like an outlier. I think that being part of a writing community is really important to you and it's a natural ability for you. And I think it comes out of being a teacher. And so remember what I said, no hesitator is only a hesitator. So, and also I think you probably in the past have had some hesitator where you knew you wanted to be a writer, but I don't know if I can write fiction or I don't know if I can, and I don't think you're a hesitator now. I think that, but it makes sense to you that the research is what makes you feel connected, or not the research, but the community part is what makes you feel connected. Being a writer and it makes you feel productive, even if you're not writing a blog post every week or whatever. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. And I had trouble connecting to a community. I would have said storytelling was my
So which one of those do you think is storytelling?
Well, I have written on here processing my life via my art, which is the Spiller one. But I think that boils down to storytelling.
Oh, see, I would have thought that was, yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see where that's Spiller.
Yeah.
Okay. And then creating something beautiful would be the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm having trouble seeing.
I'm going to change this on the fly. Like processing my life via storytelling.
Yeah, that's better, I think.
Yeah. And then creating something beautiful, that would be the artist. And see, that's not me. Artist is the one I'm the very least of, because I don't mind creating something beautiful. Obviously, if it's beautiful, that's awesome. But I am way too much. Like when I finish something, I'm ready to move to the next idea. Like right now, I cannot spend a long time like perfecting I'm just not a perfectionist at all. I'm like,
no, I'm not either.
Enough is good enough.
Meg says her favorite thing,
almost to my detriment, right? Like it would probably be better if I was a little bit more of a perfectionist. Because
me too.
For me, good enough is good enough, right? And that's not always the best. Like you know, maybe I'd be a more successful writer or fiction writer or whatever if I did put more time into it.
Peg says her favorite thing about being a writer is the process itself, the way it feels to write, and the flow. That's a very artistic thing to say.
That's a very artistic. Yeah. I'm gonna have to think on that, because it is interesting idea to me that what we love most about writing might come from our secondary.
Nick says he struggles creating characters, but definitely doesn't struggle with world building.
Somehow I am not an artist at all. I've managed to produce 3 of them, like three children, all of whom I would consider artists. Because Nicholas, that's Shark Tanko here is my son Nicholas, and Nicholas has these real, the same, like I just cut from the same cloth as Adrian or Junita, or, you know, where he's got this ideas and they're so deep, you know what I mean? Like they're so, rather than being like where I have a lot of surface ideas and I have to make myself deep in one enough to do something with it, that's their natural place. So they get an idea and then there's like, he has this whole idea.
So teachers go broad and artists go deep, maybe.
Yes. And so I have to choose an idea and then make myself do something with it that's a little deeper than just the start. And an artist has to like figure out a way to teach themselves to share, right? To okay, this is good enough now and I can put it out in the world. But Nicholas has this whole world going on about like what causes cracks in the streets and stuff, and there's like a world under the world. It's really intense.
Wow.
But writing it, like actually, like it's for an artist, having all of that and that world building and just having it like in their head is enough. So it can feel like enough, but if they want to be a successful writer, they actually have to write it down, and then they actually have to share it with the world, right? And that can be you know, you have to train. And I can see in Terry especially, and also Junita, where they have found ways to make themselves, like I can see for Terry, we're coming and having people expect her to read and share in the academy every week really keeps her working and moving forward, you know.
Janita says, it's important to me that my stories connect emotionally with my reader or strongly move them, even if it's just making them feel happy and excited.
That's because you're an artist. That's an artist statement for
she real. Starts with character and builds outward. But
she builds outward into these worlds that are
amazing. Peg says all her kids and several grandkids are writers. Some are also visual artists or photographers.
Both
Nick
of my
says
daughters are,
his world is parallel to ours, but invisible to us.
Artists, like crazy. So good.
Nan says, when I was a music teacher, my mission was to love people with music, preparing the wonderful, specific musical meal that nourishes a particular group. Writing is the same and painting is the same. That's definitely artist.
I know. I do think you have a teacher, but I'm starting to like.
She's artist teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's artist teacher. Nick says, just correcting the second world. Oh, is the second world is not underground. Okay.
No,
Nan says they are all the same thing: storytelling, composing, and painting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So great. I'm so glad everybody joined us today.
I am too.
I think it's 5 o'clock. So we can,
next week. Matt,
what should we talk about next week? I don't know. Maybe if everybody could take the quiz and come knowing which they are, we could maybe talk more about the prescription for each archetype. You know, like
that's a good idea.
That would be fun to say. Okay, well, if you're an artist teacher, here's some things that you need to do to discipline yourself. You know, to get beyond the perfectionism and stuff like that. What do you think?
That's a good idea. Let's do that.
So everybody take the quiz and then come next Wednesday and you'll tell us like whether you're artist teacher, artist, spiller, whatever, or what your biggest struggle, what you feel your biggest struggle is. And then we'll give you a prescription for how to overcome
those things.
How to overcome your weaknesses. Peg says she
using your
thought we were taking the week
leaning
off.
into your strengths and letting them carry you over or through your weaknesses.
How to lean
right?
in.
Like,
Yeah.
if I lean into my ideas, then and I let my readers in all the way. Like once I embrace the idea that I can actually like have this tribe of like this whole community, and then it became so much easier for me to write and to, like once I was okay with it and I was stopped trying. For me, it's being an art, like obviously it's the one thing that I don't have much of anything in, but once I was like, it's okay for me to write children's books that are teacher books. Like it's okay for me not to be Tolkien. I love reading him, but I can't. I mean, I don't know, maybe I could make myself somehow write Narnia, maybe. I don't know, or not Narnia, but The Hobbit, or I'm not C.S. Lewis either, who's another, like the books that are moved me the most as a child are those books, right? And they're written by artists, teachers, and I'm not that kind of writer. And once I was like, okay, like I don't have to write, because there are, I'm far more, I think my favorite book of all time is Little Women, and Little Women is just definitely, I would say Louisa May Alcott is a teacher writer. She just is. And it's okay for me to write stories, like to want to write stories that are going to reach lots of people and that are going to ignite ideas versus give people this immersion into a world, because I'm not an artist. I'm not. And it would be, I could do it maybe, I don't know, but I could sure try, but I might,
it would be
like
frustrating,
my head against the wall and not very happy.
Nan says she's too prolific to be just artist. I would agree. I think you're probably artist teacher. We're turning it around. I think we told you teacher artist earlier, but as we learn more about you, I think you're an artist teacher.
Well, Nan said she's too prolific. She is. Holy cow. She writes. Yeah, I think that Nan, the level of prolific that she is, to me, really
so she's more teacher?
A teacher. I think she's
more teacher than artist,
but a lot of artists, like a strong artist secondary. That's my guess.
All right. Tender said she's terrible with world building. It's all about the character development for me. That's me too. I want to deal with the characters. I don't care about the bushes and the flowers and the trees. And everybody knows there's trees. For me,
it's the story. So, because the story is the idea, right? If you go back to how to test and develop your story idea, right? There's a character, a setting, and a situation. And for me, it's the situation. Like the story.
For me, it's the character.
Yeah. You thought we were taking this week off, Peg, but what you don't know is that teachers never stop working.
Yeah, we took it's not a week off. It's like a reduced
At least
week.
We're not teaching on Zoom all day.
Yeah. No, we're on Facebook Live instead. Taryn says she's signing up for next month for the guild. Yay, Taryn. I'm so happy.
Taryn, I'm really glad.
Definitely connect with me, Taryn, and we'll help you figure out how to make that money.
You get into Meg's cohort.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put you into my cohort so you can we'll focus on getting you
to tell Zach.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I lost my spot. I got so excited about Taryn joining the guild. Okay. Nick says he's a hesitator artist. He's struggling with starting his book, has an idea where he wants it to go, but doesn't know how to start. Yeah. And Taryn says, oh my God, I love you guys so much. We love you too, Taryn. Janita's an artist teacher, but had a touch of hesitator too. A touch of everything except spiller, but more artist with big doses of teacher. Yeah. I would agree with that. Janita likes to do the research.
Having this big group of people here, because I can just really see like where me and Meg are cut from the same cloth, and Janita and Adrian and Nan and Terry and Nick, they all are just like like it.
Janita owns about every course out there because she loves to learn. Yeah.
But Janita does the work, and that It's
Yeah.
because she's like, maybe she was more of a hesitator at one point in her life.
In the beginning,
She's
yeah.
let her foot off the brake. And that's what I'm talking
Right.
about. Like, nobody is just a hesitator, but Junita will always be drawn to learning about how to do things, always, because she's a hesitator. So she'll always be like, oh, maybe I can learn how to do this. And she'll always have to know that it would be easy for her to fall into learning and learning and learning, and that having it feel like actually writing when she's not actually writing. So she's always going to need to be someone who tells herself, who knows a rule for herself is that what counts as writing is actually putting words on the page.
Nick says favorite writer is H.P. Lovecraft. That level of world building is what he loves. Peg says they also basically wrote one gender books.
Yeah. So, well, no, I would say Narnia is pretty split, right? There's 2 brothers and 2 sisters, but Little Women is almost all women, and Hobbit is almost all men, maybe.
Audrey says Louisa May Alcott, teacher, Spiller, probably, considering how autobiographical Little Women was. Yeah. Nan says if you say Tolkien,
maybe more Spiller than teacher.
If you say Tolkien, L. Angle, and Lewis, they are my tribe.
Oh, that's Langle. That's Madeline Langle, who is I always go to Swiftly Tilting Planet, and then I never can remember the name of the other one, which is ridiculous because it's one of my favorite books when I was a kid. Somebody put it in the chat for me.
Junita read space opera, fantasy, and paranormal. May try cozy mystery too. Less Zoom
And
this week, but still working. Yeah.
The teacher part coming out.
Nan says Peter Tremaine and Ellis Peters.
Oh, I would. Oh.
Junita says Kristen is probably artist teacher as well. Probably.
I would say yes. Junita.
Nan.
Yes, I would say.
If someone has many master's degrees.
Thank you, Peg. I don't know why I have such a hard time remembering the name of that, because the other one comes to my mind first and then it pushes the other one out. But A Wrinkle in Time, that's Madeline Langle.
Nan says if someone has many master's degrees, would you think they were a hesitator or just a researcher / collector?
Oh, I would say that they're definitely, I would not be surprised to find that they're a hesitator. I think, but it also depends on if they're like, I don't know. I'd have to know them. I don't think you can judge just by your desire to have education, but I would say that somebody who's that invested in their own education might find that they have to build in ways for themselves to like actually start like using that education, or move out of education into. And by education, I don't mean being a teacher. I mean being a student, into actually doing the work. But not always, and I don't know.
Tender Wilderness says Madeline Langle was her favorite. From her was the one with the twins.
Oh yeah, I love Madeline Langle.
All right, so we'll talk more about prescriptions next week.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
You guys come back.
Summer of the Great Grandmother, is that the one with the twins? I think. Anyway, this was a super fun conversation.
Yeah, lots of fun.
And it is super feels very good that you guys are interested in this idea, because it is something that's important to me that I came up with.
I personally think it's brilliant. Yes. And I'm excited to see us do more with this, because I think
I told Meg about it when I first had it, and she's like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, okay.
I've been trying to get her to write a book about this for a year, you guys.
Yeah. But it has taken, every time I talk about it with a group of people, I learn something more about it. So I want to make sure that I do it.
Peg says, let her into the Facebook group. Let me go look, Peg, and see if I can just...
I don't know who that Facebook user is, Sherry, but you're welcome. I don't know if that's Sherry. All right, guys, we are going to end.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
We were on live for almost 2 hours.
I know. Shaunta and I will keep coming back if you guys keep coming back.
Yes. Yes. And we will talk. We will keep going about, because idea people, I'm telling you, we need We need like Adrian in here to tell us like, hey, we've been here for 45 minutes. Let's wrap it. Because I'll just keep going for the rest of my life.
Peg,
No,
I
I'm
think
just
you're in. I don't see you on the list. Did you click join?
Taryn,
I don't
I'm so
see
glad
you.
you joined.
I don't see you waiting to get approved. So I think you're in.
Awesome.
Go check.
All
Are you
right,
looking
guys.
at the Ninja Riders? We have two groups, Ninja Riders, and then we have Ninja Riders on Medium.
So you want the
So
one that's
Ninja
not
Riders
me.
is the main group.
You guys are so welcome. This was a lot of fun for me. Thank you.
So awesome, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Nicholas is now here in front of me, and people, what? Sure. Thank you. It cracks me up because my family sometimes seems to think that like they can like while I'm on a live call over here, they can like mouth words to me, and I'm gonna be able to like.
Yep. Sydney came in and
I actually only have one brain. All right,
Sydney
guys.
came in and
Everyone
was
have a
doing that to
fantastic
me
rest
too.
of your Wednesday. We'll see you next Wednesday at 3:30.
Bye, everybody.